Good afternoon, everyone. Today is January the 1st of 2022, a brand new year. I don't really know if I want to call this a resolution or not, but I think I've decided that for at least this year, I'm going to slowly kind of start revitalizing a YouTube page that I made like way back in the day. Like in the early days of YouTube. You can make your own account. It was almost like having a social media page of sorts. And I just thought I'd maybe dive back into that and do God knows what with it. Beforehand had only used it for just a couple of goofy things, mostly for school projects and to help out a college professor with some stuff. And then it's just sort of sat there since then for the better part of like 10, 11 years. So I figured I would try to revive it in some capacity. Not that it's really going to mean much of anything. But for a couple of years now, I've been kind of running another organization's YouTube page that just sort of got started in light of the pandemic and helped kind of getting their message and their meaning out. So I thought maybe why not just try it myself. And see what happens. Almost like vlogging. Now with this particular channel, it's not going to be really anything in particular. I don't have any sort of hidden agendas. It's just sort of a place for me to vomit out whatever content I can come up with, whether that's a pre-planned project, something on the spot, what you will. But one thing I would like to try to do is sort of a weekly series where I kind of just recap things, aspects of life, maybe life lessons or whatnot that I might have gleaned from things that happened in the week leading up to the video. It could be from my own personal life. It could be from just stuff happening in the world at large. Really whatever kind of comes to mind. So sort of like a sort of vlog, maybe almost like a pastor would do a sermon series. I'm not going to really focus too much on religion, except maybe in little spots here and there, but even though I do have my own sort of practice belief system, I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to try to get you to think one way or another from a religious aspect, but just as sort of an area to, explore a little bit and just sort of talk. Just that way, even if nobody really listens to these, I can just sort of talk and get some things out and get on with my week. You're welcome to listen. You can also hit the skip, close, fast forward button, whatever you will. Having said that, like I said, today is January 1st of 2022, the first day of the new year. I'm sitting here in my at-home office. There's bookcases, or I guess it's a singular bookcase right now. The second one's still in the box. Keyboards over here, just a whole conglomeration of stuff. So I'm here just sort of getting ready to embrace for what's going to come next. Next meaning in the next 365 days, of course. We've had quite an interesting couple of years now since COVID first broke out, and the journey that we have been on that since that has happened has really taken us to all these sort of places in our lives that we never expected to go, whether as we struggle with aspects of maybe our faith lives, our own infrastructure of our country, our own societies, our relationships with each other. It's been a process, and trying to unpack all of that takes a lot of time and a lot of work. And, I think it's important that as we get ready to start over and start into a new year, that we remember to just sort of take our time with it as best we can. I know we won't always have that option, but reflecting on everything that's happened and reflecting on what is to come and where we are in relation to that, not just, of course, what's happening in the real world, but within ourselves. It's important that we are able to find and make the time to reflect on that, because like it or not, whatever happens is going to happen. Some of it maybe we can prevent, and some of it we can't. But how we respond to it, I think, is the ultimate definitive trait of who we are. It's the ultimate way that shows who we are in the world, and versus who we want to be and where we're at in that process. It's a new day, it's a new year. At least where I am, there's plenty of snow outside. You can't see it because it's bright, but to me, I see sort of that as an aspect of a clean slate in a lot of ways. When I went to my undergrad years at Warburg College, I really enjoyed going to the chapel for reasons outside of participating in spiritual life and campus ministry, and also being in choir and doing things there, was because it was very unique. A lot of churches that you go to, or a lot of chapels and sanctuaries and whatnot, they're all decorated with certain colors, and they have certain arrangements of certain ways, and in some ways it almost maybe subliminally, whether it's intended or not, might want to get you to think or act or behave a certain way. But the unique thing about my undergraduate experience was that the chapel there, it's just white. It's a very modernized chapel. I don't remember the exact date of when it was built, but it's very white, and I always sort of depicted that as like you could go in there at any time of the year, and in your mind and in your heart and with what you're feeling, you could sort of paint it, so to speak, for what you needed it to be that day. Did it need to be a place where you could let out some of the darkness within you and just feel whatever pain and agony that you're feeling so that you can heal from that and move forward? Was it a place where you could celebrate with joy, things like that, and just sort of be? You could just be. You didn't have to be one way or the other. You could just be you. And I think that's sort of what's unique about New Year's Day in itself, is that maybe with the exception of like a few retail businesses here and there and whatnot, for most of us, more or less in some capacity, get the day off. We don't have to really work per se. Most of the New Year's Eve like parties and stuff that happen are usually for New Year's Eve, and so the day, of course, is almost sort of a day of recovery, rest, and new beginnings, and a chance to start over. Oddly enough, that's something you want to do at the end rather than the beginning, but maybe we're starting that new chapter, and so everything is fresh and new. There's no color to splash on yet. We don't know what it's going to look like because we still have 300 plus days to do that. So I just given the state of the world and where it's at right now, economically, physically, financially, all that stuff, even with our own country and whatnot, it's going to be interesting to see how some of that will play out this year. And I think as long as we sort of treat today and in the coming days as sort of the possibility of being able to try again, to start over, and to try to get it right this time. We're human. We're going to constantly make mistakes. There's no escaping that. But we have to keep our intentions true, and we have to keep trying, no matter what we do. And not all of us get the luxury of being able to do that. I understand that. There are times where I don't have the luxury of getting to be a lot of things that my friends and family and familiars are. And so for those of us who are able to, we have to do our best. We do have the responsibility to care for our fellow man or our fellow humans, and to actually do something about the situations that we're in. We can't just sit around and wait for somebody else to do it, or point fingers saying so-and-so is going to do it, or she's going to go solve this situation, or he's going to pick up the pieces here. Like, sometimes we can rely on that, but that's never guaranteed. The only guarantee is of pretty much anything is that where we are right here and now, and what can we do to make sure that what we do here and now makes a lasting impression and makes the future, which is uncertain and unwritten, something worth going to. And so as we, as today goes on, and as the next few days, weeks, even the rest of the months go on, my hope is that all of everything that's sort of risen out of the world and in our own lives that is bad and awful, it will always be there. But my hope is that we can find a way to actually solve some of the problems that we're struggling with and that we're dealing with, and that we actually do something about this situation that we're in, and just to make the world like an actually better place. It's tiring having to get up day after day, week after week, and think like, okay, which major crises are we going to face today? Which crisis is going to be the worst? We shouldn't have to live in a world where that's what we think. There shouldn't have to be a crisis every waking day of some kind. We have to take responsibility for the things that we choose to do in the world. We're not free of that consequence. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, and sometimes those are not good. Sometimes they're great, but when we don't think about how our actions affect others, much less, a whole community, just our friends, family, whatever, and we just act brazenly, then there are consequences, and not the good kind, and the kind that result in broken bonds and a fragmented world, which many of us are living in right now. And there's no need to. There's no time for that. We have, regardless of what you believe, whether you have the idea that you might get to live multiple times in the history of the Earth's world, whether you just think that, you die and you go to heaven, or you die and, this is it, there is no life, whatever that is, the only certainty is that we're right here and right now, and we have to do something about that. Because if we don't, there may not be a future to right. That's it. So, my hope is that we can take this sort of new year, all of us, we can sort of take this opportunity for the new year to advance things for the better, like actually for the better, and actually doing something about them, rather than just sitting around and talking and debating and trying to figure out, this and that, because we've talked everything around in circles so much that, until we take the next step and do something, we're not going to know what to talk about next, because we haven't tried anything we've talked about. But whether that's, on a more macro scale, with the whole world, our society, even if it's just in your personal life, taking the initiative to do something that's good for you, to promote your own growth, whether that's physical, spiritual, emotional, mental, whatever, but to just keep building up, and to keep growing and finding ways to solve problems. One of my quotes that I've had floating around on my Facebook page for years now, and that I managed to stick up on our youth group ceiling up at the Methodist Church that I kind of grew up in, was a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that said, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you be something else is the greatest accomplishment. And there are certain parts of society, of course, where we have to be certain things or do certain things, but those shouldn't overshadow who we are or who we want to be. They should enhance, they should help, they should support that. And, I think sometimes to get to those things, we might have to make some concessions until we're at a point to where we can be who we want to be, and enhance who we are. Sometimes we have to deal with what's in front of us in order to become who we want to become. So, as we're trying to deal with the situations of the world right now that keep many of us sort of downtrodden in one way or another, whether that's physically, financially, emotionally, let's do something about it. Let's actually try to fix it. That's how I try to live my life, but let's actually fix it so that we can get back to trying to just be us, to be who we want to be, and to become who we're meant to be, versus wasting all this time on stuff that we don't need to waste. We shouldn't have to spend time on, at least not to the level that we have been. So I wish you all the best in the coming weeks, months, and so on. Pretty sure I already said that, but I wish you all the best, and I'm going to be doing a lot to take care of myself, or at least try to, for the time that I am able to offer a helping hand. I will do so for those who need it. But even at the end of the day, if you don't feel like you have somebody there for you, you will. There always is. Whoever that is, it's just gonna have to take some work to find that. Maybe a little more introspection, but we'll get through this, and I have full confidence that we are going to step out of whatever darkness we are in and head towards a new dawn for a new world that is meant to help all of us live bountiful, healthy, happy lives. Take care, everyone.